This episode of the Shroom Boom is all about the making of the Shroom Boom. I felt like it was really important to share what I learned in this StoryHive Voices program because it seems selfish not to be honest. Like when I entered this program, I had no idea the amount of stuff that I was going to learn. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And so for the next 30 minutes, I'm just going to talk about all of the things that I learned. And if you are an established filmmaker or you have experience in this type of stuff, this will probably be really boring and obvious to you. This would really appeal to somebody who is wanting to become a content creator or improve in content creation or wants to apply for the StoryHive program. The very first thing that I want to call out is that I had no idea how expensive editing was. And not that it shouldn't be that expensive, because if there's one thing that I learned in this whole experience is just how hard editing is. You could blow through that whole budget on editing so quickly. And so if you're thinking about hiring an editor for the entire series, I think it's important to take a step back and think about why you're doing this program. If you're doing this because you want to become a better content creator or you want to grow your skills, I would highly recommend learning to edit. So I wasn't planning on editing the series. I was planning on doing a rough cut, like learning just enough about Premiere Pro to do a rough cut, hiring an editor, and then getting him to like clean it up so it was kind of delivery ready. I worked with an editor for the first episode and he was fantastic, but he got an opportunity, a really good job opportunity. So he wasn't able to do the second episode onwards. And 2 weeks before the deadline of episode 2, I realized I would have to edit this thing myself. And it was really, really, really hard. I won't lie. It was like 10 minutes of editing and then like 30 minutes of watching YouTube videos and then back to 10 minutes of editing. It took forever, but I'm so happy it worked out that way, because essentially the way it felt was that I was in school, because I had these hard deadlines that I absolutely had to meet, and I had to edit them in that time. So I had to figure it out. And so instead of paying for school and like going to school and learning to edit, through the StoryHive program, you can essentially get paid to learn to edit if you choose to use the budget in that way. And I'm super stoked that I now have a skill like editing that I can use forever, and it's a valuable one. And it's obviously like, I had a hard time finding a quality editor that was able to deliver within my budget. And so, yeah, I just think that was probably one of the biggest takeaways. The second takeaway, hire an editor for that first episode. I think that worked really well, because I was able to actually use his first edit as a template for the rest of the episodes. And so for somebody who had no editing experience, that was really helpful. I could see exactly what he did, and I really loved that. Number 3, you really want to be super well prepared for your interviews and like know those questions like the back of your hand. Know the questions really well. And this is not because of the final product. This is because I think for me, and I think a lot of people, I was doing this program because I wanted to become a better content creator, but also because I wanted to connect with people in the field that I love, fungi. And so on the interviews where I was really well prepared, I was able to like connect with the person and form a relationship with them that I now know is forever. And on the interviews where I wasn't so prepared, I wasn't able to form that connection. And I know that I wasn't, because I was constantly in my head thinking like, what's the next question? Like I couldn't remember what the next question was. I was panicking. I wasn't even listening to what they were saying. And I wasn't able to like have a really good conversation with them. And so that definitely shows in the final product. But I think more importantly, the people are what matter at the end of the day. And so just, yeah, prepare not because of the final film or series. Prepare because the relationships that you're going to build and the people that you'll meet through this experience will probably trump everything. At least it has for me. Number 4, immediately charge your stuff when you get home. Immediately. Like, have it prepared so that when you get home, everything is charged and then you can put it back in its place and then you're ready to just like leave the house for the next interview. Every single time I left it and then had to like prepare the night before, it was always chaos, and I was always in just like a frazzled state of mind for that interview. So just charge it the second that you get home. And on top of that, immediately offload your data. That's number 5. When you get home, you should just like suck it up that you need to sit there forever to do an upload and download in so many multiple locations. But when you get home, if you just immediately get it off of that memory card and then reformat the memory card and have it ready to go, you're just in so much better of a position. Number 6, always have your backup audio on. Always have I screwed this up. I lost some really good audio because I just got lazy with turning the backup audio on. And actually on top of that, number 7, make a checklist of all of the things that you need to remember for shooting. And this is something that StoryHive, I remember them telling us to do in the education that they provide before you start filming. Number 8, natural daylight is your enemy. Incredible for photography, but fighting with natural daylight and having to like deal with the color afterwards, just use studio lighting or just use studio lighting, honestly. Number 9, expect things to not work out and expect to pivot, because they're not going to work out and you're going to have to pivot. The amount of time, like this series has changed so much from the beginning to the end because I had no choice and I had to find a way to tell it in a different way than I had planned. Number 10 is, no matter how hard it is, allow yourself to find the story as opposed to telling the story that you think should be told. This was the hardest part for me. I remember my brother, shout out to Colin, he's been running a news station, Castanet in Kelowna for many years, and he's got a ton of experience in this. So I was very well supported by him, and I called him with a total mental breakdown one day. And I remember him saying to me, like, you have to just go to these interviews and find the story. And if you're expecting to like get quotes to support the story that you're going to tell, you're not going to be able to find the story. And that was just like the best piece of advice I think I got for the entire series, because there was very specific scenarios where episodes were completely different than I imagined them, because the people just gave me better stuff than I ever could have come up on my own. So you do have to like trust that you'll figure it out. And that is really hard. And just know that it's just part of it. And that's probably journalism 101. But for me, it was very difficult. Number 12, I feel like I'm confused about these numbers, whatever. Interviewing is terrifying on that note. It's like so difficult it's just really hard. Especially, I'm definitely an introvert, and I definitely found interviewing to be the most enjoyable, but also the most draining part of this. And you just have to do it over and over and over again for it to get easier. And it does get easier. And you get better every single time. And so I would recommend starting your first interview with a friend, even if it's somebody who's part of the series. That's what I did. I ended up interviewing him for like 90 minutes and very quickly realized that that is way too long. And I would have way too much footage over 20 different interviews if I did an hour and a half each. So I ended up after that cutting down to like 20 minutes, maximum 45. Number 13, use an app like Riverside for virtual recordings as opposed to like Zoom. This is definitely not an ad, but I tried Zoom at the beginning, and not like, it's just not built for what you want in terms of like podcasting or recording. It's built for like business and anyways, there's probably a lot of different apps out there. I loved Riverside. I thought it was fantastic. Number 14, create an intentional workflow for filming and editing and write it down. Like everything that you do, from I'm going out to film, I'm getting home, what am I doing with my footage? What am I doing with, just write it down, because I was so tired at the end of these days. I just wanted to flop on the couch, and it was really, really nice to just like look at a list on the whiteboard and just like do the things I needed to do and just shut it down. One of my game changers with this series was the sticky note wall. So the sticky note wall was how I formed all of the storylines within the series. It was how I understood where I was, how much more I had to do. So basically, I made a row for each episode, and then I put one color sticky notes of all of the people that I wanted to interview within each episode. And I would have a symbol on them for, have I reached out to them and have I sent them an email? Have we scheduled and have we filmed? And as soon as I've filmed and I was done, I would change the color of that sticky note so I could see the wall changing colors as the months went by. And that was super gratifying and super encouraging. On top of that, for each episode, when I was really in kind of the juice of it, what I would do is I would edit the interviews and I would pull out the themes that were interesting and that I wanted to include in the footage. Then I would put each of those themes or like a quote on each sticky note, and then I would organize the wall in the way that I wanted the episode to be structured. So I was kind of editing in sticky notes on the wall. And I know this is a very common thing when it comes to filmmaking, but I found it so, so helpful. This is how everything gets done. If it's not on the wall, it's not happening. It's not, if I'm not seeing it every single day right in my face, it's literally never going to happen. This is how it works. Each row is an episode or a piece or a project or whatever you want. And initially, all of these were green sticky notes because I haven't done anything to them yet. And they were also blank. They didn't have little mushrooms on them. I'm about halfway through my series, and so they're half purple. But these are all reached out to, set up meeting with, and completed the interview, basically. These down here, I only do episode by episode, and these are all of the interviews that I had, and then all of the themes within each interview. And then once that's done, that just goes away and we move on to the next episode. 16 is, again, not an ad, but I really liked Artlist for assets, footage, music. I have nothing but good things to say about it. I actually really liked it because the music that you could play through it, I used all the time when I was editing. So I would just let it play under a certain theme with certain tags while I'm editing. And then as soon as I would hear something, and if it hit well with that scene that I was editing, then I would pull that music in. And I felt like that worked really well. Number 17 is you absolutely can use your iPhone as a second angle or as a main angle. If you had two iPhones, you could probably film an entire series with two iPhones based on what I have learned. What you will struggle with is, for example, I had a Canon camera that I was able to borrow from my uncle. Thank you, Jeff. And I had an iPhone where I had my mic set up into my iPhone. So I use this DJI dual mic, and it plugs right into the iPhone. Audio goes right into that side of the footage, and then you can just sync it up in Premiere Pro. But what I struggled with having an iPhone as a second angle is that the color is always off. And so you'll have to do some coloring in post-production. And it is like a little bit of a pain, but it's not a huge deal. It's just kind of part of it. Number 18, the type of cord that you buy matters. The type of cords that you buy really matter. This is something I had no idea about, that like the little USBs that have blue color on the inside as opposed to white, the blue ones are the fast ones. And you want that. Like that's really important, especially if you're editing directly from an SSD. You need that to be fast. And so get the blue ones. 19, if you are editing, get an ergonomic desk chair setup. Like you're going to be spending so much time in that computer chair that if you are not comfy and you are not vibing, then it's not going to happen. Like I had to seriously focus on my atmosphere in order to make this happen. And I think spending a little bit more money on like an ergonomic setup is probably going to increase your final product's quality more than like spending more money on a microphone or spending more money on lighting or whatever. Number 20, noise. Noise really matters. When you walk into a room and you're about to film there, what I found and the mistakes that I made was I was kind of so overwhelmed with getting ready for an interview, or I was excited to meet somebody or whatever, that I didn't take the time to listen. And your brain, you kind of have to really train to notice like little white noise, like a fan being on that you should turn off. And then once you're in post-production, that little fan can totally screw up your footage and it's really hard to deal with. So when you're walking into a room, just listen before you start filming and turn off anything that you need to turn off. On top of that, backup. Oh my God. The backup takes so long, but it's so important. So what I did, and it worked well, was I had 2 SSD. One of them I used for my like active footage that I was editing at that time. And then the second one I used for footage that had already been submitted, final episodes, stuff that I was done with, but I wanted to back up. And then everything got backed up again onto Dropbox. And then on top of that, there was a backup on my computer as well, but 3 places in total, and I still deleted some footage by accident. So sad about that footage that I lost. It will never be back again. Number 22 is putting the storyline together takes so long, like days, weeks to figure out how all of this stuff fits together into one episode. It really is one of the most difficult things to figure out, especially if you've never done it before. I think it's one of those things that like you can't force. It really feels like the perfect example of the creative process, something that like you just simply can't rush and you have to trust that you're going to figure it out in the end. Dedicate. I think if there's any wisdom I would impart here is that you just need to trust that it's going to take a couple of weeks, maybe even more. It is what it is, and enjoy it, because giving yourself that space and like ideation space to figure out how the stuff fits together is the magic sauce. And like I said, it is the creative process. And so enjoy it and don't force it. 23. I think I already said this, backup recording, but it's probably worth saying again. Turn your backup recording on. Number 24. Edit with headphones. Oh my God. So if you're editing just out of your laptop speakers, you'll miss stuff. You will. I edited an entire interview and then realized that it was only actually coming out of one ear. And I had to actually throw it out and start again because of the way that I had imported the audio. So if I would have just had my headphones on, I would have known that it was set to mono instead of stereo. And also you'll be able to pick up like music levels a lot better. 25. Be as concise as possible when you're filming, because storage will forever be an issue. Just be concise as you can. At first, you'll probably film way too much and then you'll trim it down. At least that's how it went for me. 26. It's really hard to put yourself out there in so many ways. I had never spoken to the camera in the way that I am even right now, and shared my ideas and my thoughts and my writing and my editing and even interviewing people. Is just really hard to put yourself out there. And you just have to find a way to like decompress and cope throughout all of this. And like, I think it's really important to connect with the fact that you're in an uncomfortable place. And I don't know, just even addressing that, I think is really important. Number 27, when you're booking interviews, make a template. So write out a script of inviting somebody for an interview and then save that and use it every time. So you'll basically want to like write a script for each of your episodes, what that episode is about, what the series is about. You'll have to actually use that anyways when you hand in your project. And so just writing it out in advance is a really good idea. Number 28, I really loved using Notion. Again, not an ad, to manage all of my content. I had a different page for each of the episodes, and I was able to collaborate with the editor for the first episode. And yeah, I really loved that for managing stuff. 29, sort your releases out in advance. Just print them out and bring them to the shoot and get the person to sign it, and you'll be done with it. Following up afterwards with an email is something that I did, and it was a stupid thing to do. Number 30, do a logo check before each shoot. Oh my God. I didn't do this on my first episode. I just wasn't thinking about it, even though the StoryHive people told me to. And I had to do a lot of blurring of logos in the edit, and just save yourself some time. Bring some black tape so you can tape up logos, but more importantly, just tell people in that email when you schedule the interview not to wear logos. That's it. Yeah, I hope this was helpful for somebody. I would really encourage everybody to apply for StoryHive. Yes, in the midst of like the edit, and 2 months ago when I was really, really, really being pushed, I think I remember saying like, I would never do this program again. But in retrospect, after kind of getting out on the other side, it was one of the best things that I've ever done. I do think it's important to call out that like, I feel that I was able to manage this because of the lifestyle that I already had. I have a full-time job, but I do work from home. I have the flexibility to work from home. So I was able to use my 9 to 5 hours for upload and download of data, which just takes a lot of time. And I came from a background in tech. And so learning to edit, I know, was probably a little bit easier for me than somebody who didn't have, say, like a software development background or didn't work with computers all the time. I think ultimately this whole process for me was a lesson in letting go. I would have loved way more time and way more money to be able to do this in a way bigger way. But it was important to me to use the resources that I had and not put any of my own money into this. It was important that it was like, this is the goal. This is the amount of money you have. This is the resources you have. What can you make with that? It was a challenge in itself, and like letting go of perfection and just like accepting that this is not only new to me, but it's a really big project, especially for such a small team. And I had a lot of people who helped me. You can't do it all. Like there was a couple things that I was really sad about not being able to include. One of the things that I was really, really sad about not being able to include was an Indigenous voice. This kind of broke my heart, to be honest, because I was looking initially, no, you know what? I'm not even going to make excuses. I was supposed to interview somebody and they had a family emergency and they weren't able to make that interview. And I could have prepared for that interview far sooner, but I didn't, and that's okay. Like, you're gonna drop some balls in this program. You're gonna drop balls, and it's not gonna be the way that you want it. That's okay. As long as you do your best, literally as long as you do your best. And this is all coming from somebody who has not seen it out into the world yet, so I guess ask me how I feel once it's out there. It is like important for me to address the fact that this was so much work. So much work. And it was really, really challenging in so many different ways. And this is coming from somebody who's like really privileged in a lot of ways. I had access to so much support in my community from people who just loved me and wanted to help. Equipment from people like my friend Ben, he gave me lighting for basically the entire time. I had an uncle who gave me a camera. I had just, it goes on and on. And I had I have a boyfriend. Hopefully by the time this comes out, I still have a boyfriend. I have a boyfriend who made the theme song, the Shroom Boom theme song, because he's a music producer. Like, so much opportunity and so many connections and privileges. And it was still one of the hardest things I've ever done. And so if you're looking for a challenge and you're looking to grow and you're looking to gain skills, like real skills, you should definitely just do it, because it's worth it. It's worth it. I think that's all. I hope this was helpful. So while I've been filming this docuseries, a question has come up that I didn't ever think I'd have to ask. Is virality a concern when it comes to mushroom foraging? Are we concerned that there will be too many people that will want to go forage mushrooms and the communities will be disrupted, the ecology will be disrupted, etc., etc.? And the people that I've spoken to so far in interviews, they seem to say yes, that specifically with stuff like truffles and mazutake, that they're worth enough money that if there was a large influx of people that were to go into an area and want to forage and want to kind of like make that their their source of income, that we would have a hard time supporting the communities around and supporting the ecology and supporting the environment. And I never thought that I would be concerned about this. 5 years ago, my whole MO was to make mushrooms cool. And I really was feeling like they didn't have the street cred that they deserved. And there was a lot of people that just kind of looked at me like I was some nerdy girl, like, oh, what's with the mushroom stuff? And now, 5 years later, that's the last thing on my mind. Like, the virality is there. Now, is it a problem, and am I contributing to that problem by making viral videos and making content like this? I don't know. I don't want to be part of the problem, but at the same time, I don't know any other way to live.